The gang starts off today's game with some makeshift EDH action, that being Sam pulling a Great Furnace into a Soul Ring. But it doesn't end there, folks. He still has an Arcane Signet, and even an Emery, Lurker of the Loch, milling 4 on EDB. John wants a piece of the action, so he plays a Command Tower into a Soul Ring and a secondary Mana Rock in Milliken. Tom thought he will be the target this game, but instead plays Branch Off Pathway and his own Soul Ring just to keep up. Meanwhile, Extra cries a bit on the inside and plays a tapped Fury Calm Snarl. With 75% of players already developed, Sam goes for a tapped Mystic Monastery, followed by a Roaming Throne naming Human, before topping his turn off with an attack on John with Emery. John first activates Milliken to mill 1 and make a mana, which he uses to cast World Shaper. He then plays a Vine Glimmer Snarl tapped and passes. Tom may have been able to keep up on the first turn, but now he just plays a Stomping Ground tap and lets the turn go to Extra. Extra plays a Luxury Suite and throws his hat in the ring with a Talisman of Indulgence. Sam plays an Inventor's Fair, then casts Urza, Lord High Artificer, making 2 constructs thanks the throne when it enters. He then, with the help of Urza, sacrifices Inventor's Fair to tutor up Mishra's Bauble, which he then casts. In response to this, Tom casts Beast Within on Emery to try and slow down the value it's had. With all said and done, the turn goes to John. John plays a Clearwater Pathway and casts his commander, the Wise Mothman, giving each player a rad counter when it enters. He then goes to combat and attacks Sam with World Shaper, triggering its effect to mill 3. This triggers Mothman, which gives a 1/1 counter to itself and Shaper. Sam declares no blocks, takes the damage, and the turn is passed to Tom. Tom's turn starts by triggering Radiation, milling 1, while losing 1 life and a rad counter. This triggers Mothman, giving itself a counter. He then plays Clifftop Retreat and casts his commander, Dogmeat, Ever Loyal, which on an ETB mills 5 cards and returns Chains of Custody to his hand. This also triggers Mothman, giving all 3 of his creatures a counter. The turn then moves to Extra. Extra first triggers Radiation, milling 1, losing 1 life and a rad counter, while triggering Mothman, making itself bigger. He plays a Foreboding Ruins tapped and casts Krenko, Tin Street Kingpin, before passing the turn, at which point Sam sacrifices his Bauble to look at John's top card and proceeds to go to his turn. On Sam's upkeep, Bauble triggers, letting him draw a card. He then triggers Radiation, only milling a card. He then plays a Blaze for turn and activates Urza to cast Delny, Streetwise Lookout, from the top of his deck. He then goes to combat, attacking Extra with 1 construct, while the other construct and a beast attack Tom. Both take the damage, and Sam ends his turn off with a Goblin Welder. In his end step, John also activates Milliken, milling 1, and giving Mothman a counter with its own effect. John first triggers Radiation, milling a card. He then casts Remnant Excavator and uses his effect to play a swamp from his graveyard. He then activates Milliken, milling 1 and making a mana, which triggers Mothman. Next he casts Nyx Weaver and goes to combat, attacking Sam with Mothman and Shaper. Mothman triggers first, giving each player a rad counter, while Shaper mills 3, again triggering Mothman on itself, Excavator, and Shaper. He passes. Tom triggers Radiation, milling a card. He then plays a Forest and casts Fighter class, finding a Nullcyst. After that, he casts Bear Umbra on Dogmeat and uses him to attack Extra. This triggers Bear Umbra to untap all his lands and Dogmeat to make a junk token. Extra takes the damage, and in his second main phase, Tom casts Chains of Custody on Dogmeat, using its ETB effect to exile Mothman. With that done, he passes the turn to Extra. Extra also triggers Radiation, milling 1, losing 1 life, and a rat counter. He then plays a Shattered Sanctum for turn, followed by his commander, Ceasar, Legion's Emperor. He then goes to combat, attacking Tom with Krenko. Krenko triggers, gaining a counter and making 2 goblins. Ceasar also triggers, sacrificing a goblin to make 2 attacking soldiers and dealing 3 damage to Sam. Tom takes the damage as he is unable to block. And on his end step, John casts Rapid Hybridization on Urza, giving him a Frog Lizard instead. Sam first triggers Radiation, milling 2, losing 1 life and a rat counter. He then truly starts off his turn with a Vidalcan Archmage, followed by Welder, sacrificing Soul Ring to return Talisman of Unity. He then casts Jeskai Ascendancy, paying 1 life for the Talisman. Next is a Mox Opal, triggering Archmage to draw 2, Ascendancy to untap and give +1/+1 to his creatures. He then uses Opal to add red before sacrificing it to Welder, returning Soul Ring. He casts Panic Spellbomb, triggering Archmage to draw 2, Ascendancy to untap, give +1/+1, and draw a discard. Once that is done, he uses Soul Ring for mana and replaces it with Mox Opal thanks to Welder. With the red from before, he casts Enthusiastic Mechanaut, which triggers Archmage to draw 2. He continues with a reduced Talisman of Conviction, again triggering Archmage and Ascendancy. And another Welder activation, swapping Spellbomb and Soul Ring. Spellbomb triggers, and is paid for by the Talisman, losing 1 life in the process. Nearing his end, hopefully, he casts Aetherworks Marvel, triggering Archmage and Ascendancy, followed by Training Center as his land for turn, and Fob Moderer, again triggering Archmage and itself to draw 4. Welder then swaps Soul Ring and Mishra's Bauble, while triggering Marvel to make it energy. Not finished quite yet, he casts Everflowing Chalice, triggering Archmage and Ascendancy, activates Welder to swap Mox Opal and Soul Ring, and casts Mirror Retriever, triggering Archmage. With all that finally done, Sam remembers his combat, so he attacks Tom with a Construct and Throne, while sending the rest at Extra. Extra's Goblin jumps in front of the Construct, and the damage is dealt. As a result, Tom dies, and in his second main, Sam activates Bauble on Extra, and along with the cards he discards in his cleanup, makes 6 energy with Marvel. John awakens from his slumber, first milling 2 for Weaver, and another 2 to Radiation, losing 2 life and both rat counters. He then plays a Tainted Isle for turn, and activates Weaver's effect, exiling it and returning Herald of Secret Streams to his hand, which he then casts, and goes to combat, attacking Sam with all of his creatures. Sam then responds by activating Marvel and casting Surgical Spellbomb. This triggers Archmage and Ascendancy, which allows Welder to return Mox Opal and cast Dispatch on Herald, again triggering Ascendancy, before killing off all of John's attackers. This triggers Shaper to return all the lands from his graveyard tapped, and with no mana left, he passes the turn to Extra. Extra plays a Bright Climb Pathway for turn, and casts Ellis Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, followed by 4th Aerolingus, making 2 Human Knights, and triggering Ellis twice to gain 2. He then attacks all out at Sam, triggering Krenko to gain a counter and 3 goblins, Ellis to gain 3, Ceasar sacrificing Krenko to make 2 attacking soldiers and 9 damage at Sam, and Ellis again gaining 2 and making each opponent lose 1. Sam blocks everything, but in the end is not able to survive the 7 Ellis triggers, leaving Extra alone with the final Soul Ring user. John first casts Fathom Mage, followed by recasting his commander, the Wise Mothman, triggering Mage to evolve and draw a card. while Mothman gives them both a rad counter. He finishes off the turn with a tapped Overgrown Tomb. Extra triggers Radiation, healing 1, losing 1 life, and a rad counter. This triggers Mothman to give a counter to Phantom Mage and draw a card with its effect. He then recasts his commanders Ceasar, Legion's Emperor, triggering Ellis to gain 1 life. After that, he goes to combat, attacking John with all of his creatures, triggering Ceasar, sacrificing a goblin to make 2 attacking soldiers, and deal 4 damage to John. Ellis triggers again, gaining 2 life and dealing 1 to John. He then blocks both goblins, and triggers Ellis for a final time, losing 2 life. Extra then passes the turn. John triggers Radiation, milling 1, losing 1 life, and a rad counter. This triggers Mothman to give a counter to Phantom Mage and draw a card with its effect. He plays a Forest and casts Gyre Sage. Followed by the Myco Tyrant, triggering Sage to get a counter. He then attacks Extra with Mage and Mothman, triggering Mothman to give both players a rad counter. After the damage is dealt, John passes. Extra triggers Radiation, filling 1, then cast Song of Totans for X equals 5, and with the help of Ceasar and Ellis, is able to attack with all of his creatures and squeeze out the win against the Sol Ring Tyrants.